running for ASUW president with the Mountain UW. What sets me apart as a candidate is my internal and external experiences as a leader. Internally, I've worked part of the board of directors as your director of diversity efforts, where I've worked closely with the Resident Hall Student Association, first year programs, UW-PD, and have lobbied on your behalf for the past 3 years in Olympia. Externally, I've worked with Senator Cantwell's office, Mike O'Brien's office, and I run a nonprofit. What I really want to do next year is make sure that our students' voice is being reached and we are visible within our communities. Externally, I want to find modernized and new ways to reaching our communities, be it bringing back the alumni, getting our parents involved, or future Huskies, making sure that everybody's voice is reaching Olympia in a creative way. Finally, I feel like, you know what, this is a beautiful campus, we have a lot going on, and our student body government prides itself on diversity, creating new accessibility to education, and I want to make sure next year that I bring those values and qualities to the forefront of the association. Thank you.
Right?
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Connor McLean. I'm running for ASUW president of the Huskies United ticket. I'm going to tell you all right now, next year is going to really be tough. We're obviously facing budget cuts, and you need a president who has the campus and advocacy experience to represent student voices in Olympia and also on campus. However, the role of the ASUW president is not just to be a lobbyist in Olympia. They need to be able to bring student groups and student leaders together on campus to ensure that all our voices are being heard and represented in our communities. I have experience working with Bark Against Budget Cuts this year, and that's something I want to carry over to next year. So starting day one, we're reaching out to student leaders on campus to ensure their voices are being heard and they're incorporated in the process. I have the advocacy experience, lobbying legislators, as well as organizing on campus. I have the internal experience within the ASUW, and I have the experience on campus through 4 years of experience and involvement. Because of this, I believe I have the breadth and depth of experience that qualifies me to be your ASUW president. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Andrew Lewis and I'm running for ASUW president on the Our Future ticket. And I'm running because it's time that politicians treat us like constituents and administrators treat us like equal partners. Next year's going to be extremely critical. The state of Washington used to pay 60% of our education. It used to pay for over 50% of our education, now they're paying much less. And we need to make sure that we can go down to Olympia with one solid voice and tell them enough is enough. This year as the Assistant Director for the Office of Government Relations, I've gotten results. I've secured $1.5 million in subsidy for the UPass program. I've strengthened laws to crack down on slumlords that take advantage of students living off campus. But I know full well that my entire job as ASUW president won't only be off this campus, but on this campus. That's why I have the experience this year in ASUW of sitting on as chair of 2 committees, the Legislative Steering Committee and the Student Transportation Task Force. I've run them efficiently, and in both cases I've gotten results, and I'm committed right now and prepared to be your ASUW president on campus and off campus. I've been endorsed by the Interfraternity Council, I've been endorsed by President Madeline McKenna, I've been endorsed by President David Parsons of the Teacher Assistants Union, because they know I can be the most effective and passionate student voice for students on campus and off campus. Vote for me, vote for your future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And now we're going to get started with the question and answer session. So the first question is for Dahlia. How will you continue to address the ASUW budget shortfall?
Sure. Well, currently we are still waiting back to hear from the SAFI and to figure out if the budget how the budget's going to look. And I think what I really want to make sure next year is to make sure we have a balanced budget, and that definitely working with the vice presidential candidate to make sure that internally we are reaching out where we can fill in gaps and how we can address other points. And I think with the association, we have a big budget, and I think it is unfortunate that a lot of times we have not in the past sat down and figured out what has happened in the past and where we can fill in gaps. And I think what I want to do next year, starting from as soon as I get elected, sitting down with the incoming board, figuring out what we can save up and where we can apply the budget to. And I think it's definitely making sure that next year in office, when we have the employees of ASUW hired, is we're bringing and discussing with them through fall quarter, winter quarter, spring quarter, and make sure the liaisons each of those organizations and their employees are being reached constantly, and we can address their issues on how they can spend their money, how they should look into the future and finding collaborating programs, working together with other groups to make sure that we are not always, we're maximizing our costs. And also reaching aside, I want to create a there's currently working on the investment for the ASUW, and I want to make sure to work with maybe the foundation, Student Foundation, to make sure that we can, UW Foundation, to work with finding ways we can address finding, maybe bringing our alumni back, our parents, other ways that we can bring in money to the association that we can use to do simple things like tabling outside or hold events that, that we can encourage give away things to students who maybe are incoming freshmen who don't know much about ASUW. Getting them in different ways aside from the regular forums or, ASUW one-on-ones. Trying to find, by having that cost effectiveness, by bringing different kinds of money, venues of money, we can definitely apply them to make sure that we're reaching out to our students in a creative manner.
All right, Connor. With the president's demanding schedule, how will you make sure you establish a relationship between students and the new president?
Great question. I'll talk on students first. I believe making relationships with students is going to be one of my first priorities next year, and that's something that I want to start with from day one. While student groups are out there being involved, trying to recruit new students, and student leadership and student groups are being just formed, I want to make sure that they're being incorporated in the process of planning of what ASUW is planning to do. Next year, if we're trying to plan to organize with Mark Against Budget Cuts again, or whatever mechanism for organizing against state budget cuts that we have, I want to make sure that those groups are being included in that process, so they know that ASUW actively wants to work with them, and we want them and their voices to be a part of that process. Beyond that, I think that we need to continue to have that outreach throughout the year. I want to work with my board of directors to ensure that as Huskies United, as our ticket, they all want to reach out to those communities, and I want to make sure that they're actively doing that and hold them accountable to that. So that's another thing that they'll be doing as well with community relations, individual policy procedures with advocacy, that they're ensuring that those positions or those connections are staying. With the new UW president, that's something I want to touch on immediately. If elected, I would reach out to them immediately in May and June and over the summer, since I'll be here, to make sure that I'm actively talking with them, finding out where he sees student voice and the student needs of this campus, and how I can work with him to do that. That's something even within the Board of Regents over the summer, that's something, those connections I want to be able to build with a new student regent, whoever that may be, to make sure that we have a one-on-one basis and we have a one-on-one relationship going into next year, so that we can work together throughout the entire year, whether it's budget cuts, whether it's working within the administration, whether it's the dog pack. There are a lot of issues that are going to come up next year that I can't even foresee at this point. But as long as we have those relationships built from the beginning, and as long as they continue to last throughout the year, that's something that I think we can address effectively as time goes on.
Andrew, students have concerns about communication with the UW PD. How do you approach the UW PD within your ASUW structure?
Well, thank you for that question, Sarah. UW PD is a really important part of how we visualize our UW community here. And I think it's really important that UW PD coordinate with SPD, and that UW PD's jurisdiction be maintained in having the most direct interaction with students instead of SPD. I think that things like sound complaints in the Greek community or policing the Greek community should be left mostly to UW PD, because we trust them, we know them, they're more accountable to us as a community. I think that violent crime on the Ave, or situations where we've had situations with female students that are bigger victims of crime right now, and it's been increasing, like that should be approached by SPD on the Ave, on 15th, in the community outside of the north of 45th sort of Greek zone, and for more violent oriented crime. And I think that if UW PD and SPD are able to effectively communicate that way, then we can make sure that those resources are more shared, and that we don't have UW PD spending time with stuff that we'd rather have SPD doing, and vice versa. So that's essentially my position. I think, when's the last time we had UW PD go before a student senate meeting? Or when's the last time we had UW PD go before the board of directors? I want my community relations director, Josh Chow, a fine, upstanding young gentleman, to be working with those different community stakeholders to make sure that they feel comfortable with UW PD as well. And that's what my focus would be. I've got a lot of experience in law enforcement. I sit on the Seattle Human Rights Commission, where I oversee the police accountability subcommittee. So I'm not completely alien to these issues, and I'd really look forward to making sure that everyone feels safe on this campus, but also that their rights are respected by law enforcement.
The next question is for Dahlia. Hypothetically, the Daily prints a series of unflattering, libelous articles pertaining to ASUW. Within ASUW's current structure, how do you address your concerns? You've already spoken with the editor, which has not yielded results.
Sure. Well, I think I am the kind of person that believes that, either 100% in there or nothing in there. And I think with the Daily, I've been a student here, and this past quarter, fall quarter, I decided, you know what, I've heard a lot of students who love the Daily, other students who don't. And so I was like, I'm going to take part of this in this student paper that we have. And I got involved with the Daily this past quarter, and I've co-founded the street team where we're trying to find student voice on campus that we can reflect in the student paper. And I think in office next year, as the president, if that issue did come up, which has come up in the past as the Student Advisory Board Chair for the Office of Minority Affairs, where some students have had issues with particular papers or writers. And I think what that would, if talking to the editor did not provide any potential leeway into fixing the problem or addressing it, what I would do is take the next step and definitely talk to the particular beat reporter that we may have that ASUW has, or the particular writer that wrote a particular story that students got upset about, or definitely understand both parties. I think communication is so important. Understanding what the students want or why they're upset about this article or whatever the case may be. And then speaking with the Daily staff and addressing that. And I think bringing into a room and having that discussion is so important. And I have done that in the past with the Daily. Last year, the Daily was invited to the Student Advisory Board meeting, and we had a long discussion about how we can approach writing articles about the diversity and how particular titles for the papers or the way issues were addressed affected students. And I think after that communication, the Daily got a better understanding of what we were looking for, and so did the students had a better understanding of what the Daily was trying to approach. And after that, I feel like this year there has been a better way of representing diversity in the paper, and has definitely been a greater way of addressing student issues through the paper. And I think just that simple method and applying it again with ASUW it is approaching the students, both parties, understanding what each party wanted, and being able to have a line of communication. And I think we can go on from there.
Right, Connor. Given voter turnout rates, why do you think more students are not aware of or interested in what student government does?
I think the prime answer to that is simply students don't realize how ASUW serves them and what ASUW does for them. There are a lot of students on this campus that are really involved in their own individual ways, whether it's academics, whether it's academic groups. There's over 700 RSOs, and a lot of students have unique ties to those and have a real passion for being involved. So clearly students do care about extracurricular activities. They're not just here for their studies. It's part of the entire college experience, but they don't necessarily see how ASUW fits into that. And that's where I think that we as a board, and myself as president, need to fix that. And that's something I really want to do, what I want to do next year in working with different student groups and working with the student leadership across campus, is to show them what ASUW does and how they can be a part of that process. If it's budget cuts and it's organizing, I want to ensure that they know how they can be involved and they know the specific ways that ASUW we can utilize them, and they can be a part of the ASUW to ensure that we have an effective voice, to ensure that we have a diverse group of students from diverse perspectives, so that when we're talking to legislators, or we're going to Olympia, we're sending postcards, whatever mechanisms we're going to end up doing, that voice is being heard and it's being really effective from across campus. Another reason I think that some students just may not care is they just kind of see it as a student government. They see their ASB in high school, and they get here and it's a big campus and we're just not visible. Director of Communications, I think, is a great new position on board that can help mend that, and that can help brand the association so that we can effectively get out to the average student what we're doing and what we're about. We have a message, the ASUW has messages, we have entities, and within those entities, they serve students in a variety of capacities. Again, students don't know about it because they don't see it. So unless they see it, whether the Facebook group that Chris Jordan created this year is a step to solve that. Our Director of Communications has a lot of great ideas from ASUW United that we could incorporate that process next year to, again, reach out to more students so they see what the ASUW actually does. As president, I would ensure that that is happening and that my voice is instrumental behind that, reaching out to those student groups.
Andrew, the community is responding negatively to a resolution you approved on the board. How do you respond?
Okay, well, I think the first important thing to do would be to identify the communities that are opposed, to go to them, to meet with them and understand their grievances better, and see if we could reach some kind of a mediation. Because I don't think there's ever any conversation that's absolutely closed and absolutely over. I think that if there are legitimate grievances, and if there's something I overlooked as a leader, I will take the responsibility, I will meet with the people that feel offended, and I will say, okay, how can we work this out? What can we do to change this? I mean, I think that it's important to bring in as many stakeholders as possible when we're making decisions as a board. If either any of us, when we become president, we're becoming president of a massive community built up of lots of smaller communities. And it's important that everyone's voice on this campus is empowered and communicated to. It's going to be really important to utilize the communications director, Michelle Nance from the Our Future Ticket is going to be great at this, to be able to get our message out and to build those coalitions in a meaningful way that we've never done before.